Real quick, I'm Brian Jesus. I'm one of the CRO EIRs here. Previously, I was the CRO at Zoom from about roughly 500 million to about 4.5 billion. Before that, I spent about a decade at Ring Central from under 20 million to about $1 billion run rate. I'm really excited to be here. You know, one fun fact for myself, I guess, is every time I sit in a session like this, and AI is everywhere. I don't know if any of you follow basketball, but I always think of how rich Allen Iverson could have been. He's known as AI. And if he had copyrighted and trademarked AI, he'd be cashing in like no other at a conference like this. I'll let the rest of the group introduce themselves before I open it up. Do you want to go next, Stevie?
Sure. Hi, I'm Stevie Case. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Vanta. We are a Series C company in the security compliance space. We have a trust management platform. And I've been with Vanta for just over 3 years, having come from 6 years at Twilio prior to that.
And I'm Mark Branding. I run all the client-facing functions at Glean. So it's pre, post-sales, partners, direct sales, etc. Prior to being at Glean, I was at Snowflake for almost 8 years, where I was on the other side of the risk marketing techniques, which was very interesting and obviously was a good competitor at times, for sure. Fun fact about me, I think there was one question that we wanted to share. When I left Snowflake, my team actually gave me a book that was called A Book of Wendlingisms, which was actually interesting and very heartwarming. But I use a ton of analogies. One, because English is not my native language, but also because I like using analogies. And when I came home and I showed that book to my kids, they opened it and said, "You didn't say that." And my son actually said to my daughters, "I always said worse." So that's I guess that's a good day in the life of a sales leader.
We'll have to get a signed copy.
Yeah, exactly. Tyler Harnish. I'm an EIR here at Scale. I spent 17 years at Salesforce, joined when they were just over 1,000 people, left when they were 85,000, and they've since come down to about 75,000, which we don't really want to advertise. I split time between San Francisco, Arizona, and London. I've lived the last 10 years in London, doing various jobs within EMEA and then globally for Salesforce. My fun fact, I just thought of this while you were talking. My first or second year at Salesforce, I was at an offsite, and I sat there and watched Mark Benioff try and use an ATM, and he was not successful, and I thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever seen.
There you go. So we're really here today, and we've been hearing AI, and it's really about selling in the age of AI. And one key word is, I think, disruption for those that have been in the sessions, especially this morning. We're hearing about the speed, we're hearing about the disruption, we're hearing about the pace. And what we're going to hear about is how to sell AI in this current world. And it's kind of interesting, right? Because we're selling these AI tools and processes. We're selling it to buyers that honestly don't know how to buy AI yet either. And there's a lot of sales playbooks. A lot of us have been very successful in our careers. There's playbooks that we've had, things that we've done, and those playbooks aren't always as successful today. And so what are the pitfalls? What are those tools? And how do we look forward in the market to be successful? And that's what we're going to walk through.
Yeah, so as Ryan and I were trying to design this, we were thinking about changing landscapes, changing personas, changing marketplaces, but also changing expectations. So adjusting expectations from a buyer perspective. So the first question for you two is, what are you seeing in the marketplace? And then, as a follow-on, how are your teams adjusting? Stevie, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there are a couple of things at the heart of this. One is that there is a lot of confusion about the structure. You're buying AI solutions, those things take lots of different forms. And this is something that my own team has gone through. We've got a great RevOps function. I have a quite large RevOps team of almost 30 folks. RevOps historically have been more administrators of systems versus builders. So one of the first things we had to wrap our brains around, and that we find buyers need to wrap their brains around, is what is this thing and how would I implement it? Am I writing code? Am I leveraging one of the models and integrating with that and trying to piece something together? Is this something more like a verticalized SaaS solution that I am just going to administer? Is it a low-code, no-code hedge? There are all these different forms. You've got to wrap your brain around that. And then I think there's the development of a point of view of which of those things you're going to use in what combination. That needs to drive the type of people you have on your RevOps team. It drives how you enable your team as well. So there's just a lot of structural stuff that we've got to sort out and go to market to be able to sell these and to be able to buy these kind of solutions. And then the second is trust, and this is fundamental to the work we do at Vanta. The core use case that we're known for is helping startups become compliant for the first time. And at the heart of that, it was taking these very manual processes that were done with spreadsheets and screenshots and working with auditors who are very non-technical and bringing that to a more automated way of working. At the heart of that, you've got to trust the technology. So for example, we use AI to drive questionnaire automation. If you sell or you buy, you have dealt with these 1,000 questionnaires. We have a suite of products that helps drive automation around answering those kind of things. And at the heart of that, you've got to trust it. It's got to be highly transparent. You've got to have ways to prove that trust. So the bar becomes higher. This is a very different landscape than it is in SaaS.
Thank you.
So I will actually start by saying, over the last couple of years, one thing that has happened on the customer side is there's been an enormous amount of money spent on AI with zero real intent, right? So a ton of people have bought AI just for the sake of it because their board told them, you should invest in AI, you should do this, you should do that. And unfortunately, as of right now, we are in a position where not that much ROI has been tracked on the positive side. And I think even though playbook and methodologies can change, there's one constant. You have to attach your value prop and your offering to the transformation you are driving. So there's a detailed use case that you are attaching yourself to, and you need to actually bring the proof points, the examples of how you have accomplished transformation, why the companies that had bought your product, literally today are saying, my investment in this was justified by the ROI that I've been, delivering. And that ultimately is a very traditional sales playbook for what it's worth. Detach yourself from the product, focus on the outcome that you're driving, and ultimately make sure that you have proof points on how you do it better. And I'm paraphrasing a lot of the, command of the message IP, if you're familiar with that. But that's very much what you need to use. And the companies that are today successful in AI is the ones that are attaching business transformation with the product they are purchasing.
So I love that answer, but that leads to my follow-up question, which is differentiation. I mean, it's an incredibly crowded world right now, and pitching all these different companies, and there's a lot of AI companies saying very similar things. How do you differentiate yourself?
Yeah, so it's important to actually be, crystal crisp and very clear on the value prop you drive. And a lot of people are saying, look, AI is about automating what I provide. Automation doesn't mean anything, right? It's, okay, what are you simplifying? Are we talking about time save, or are we talking about augmentation of what the end user is able to have from an output perspective? At Glean, for instance, we say, we're not here to take anyone's job. What we are here to do is to bring a team around you, not just an assistant. It's an assistant, it's your coach, it's your chief of staff. It's a lot of people that are going to enable you to provide more things from an output perspective. But it's very important to be crisp about the what and how you accomplish things. And to an extent, don't focus on automation. Because a lot of AI pitches are about, we're going to go and help you automate this. Doesn't matter.
What's the value?
What's the value?
What's the use case? What's the value?
Yes.
To add to that, once you've got that crisp value prop and you've attached it to something real, I think the part that a lot of folks forget about is the value realization. There's an entire step that is bringing that value to life, helping a customer measure it, realize it, understand what it is, and then build on it. And I think that there is this false belief that we're seeing all this revenue thrown at AI solutions. To Mark's point, there's a lot of experimental budget that got thrown at AI solutions that then did not get adopted. I have seen and expect to continue to see in the industry a lot of churn post year one, when folks realized they did not actually get the value that was articulated out of the solution. And you come back to how complex some of these solutions are, and that sometimes the team that you've got is not actually equipped to realize that value. And it becomes a real problem if you're selling an AI solution. So you need to think beyond just what the thing is and what the value is, and is that better than what exists today, to how can you help your customers make that real? I went, best case scenario, I went a couple of weeks ago over to the Clay offices, and we did a full day hackathon, which was really fun as a GTM team to do a hackathon with a vendor. And they brought engineers, we brought my head of RevOps and my post-sales leader, and we just sat in a room and built use cases during the day. And we got more done in one day than we had gotten done in the previous couple of months. And part of that was just like the paradigm shift and making it concrete how to get these things into the wild. So like that value realization piece is equally as important to articulating the value out of the gate.
I would add one quick thing.
Please.
On the AI front, I think there's also there's one aspect of the enterprise that is being neglected most of the time. It's the user. If you think about like selling old-fashioned SaaS or selling Salesforce today, you saw the solution.
SaaS. Remember that old stuff?
I know, but like
it's funny. It's true.
For a lot of companies, like they are selling to one individual, with I identify where's the budget, who does that, etc. But does anybody care about the Salesforce users? Unfortunately, I don't think that many people do. Whereas, for the botched launches of AI, the vast majority of the time, the user did not even know what they were supposed to accomplish with it. And I will also use probably a lot of people's example. Like the first time, your first interaction with OpenAI, you type 2 keywords and you hope you're going to get a return. The truth is like, no, it's an interaction with a machine that is talking to you. And once you actually start understanding that this is the new experience, then the experience becomes rewarding, not at first. And so if you are creating the proper experience for the user to be hooked, then if for any reason there's a threat of churn, truth is you will end up having a vendetta. And I experienced that at Glean when I was trying to cut some of my budget with a vendor that I'm still partnering with, because the moment I even entertained turning it off, my entire sales organization just screamed, "Are you out of your mind?" It's the most helpful solution ever. And usage data would not have necessarily conveyed that the perception that I lacked. So obviously user behavior and passion is something that almost like the very early stage of SaaS. People were paying more attention to users, and right now no one is, but they should.
All right. Well, some fundamentals still exist, right? We're hearing what we're hearing. Value realization, business outcomes, focus on the users, usability. And I think those would be things that through different software periods that would carry over. How about when you shift that internally, right? So it's one thing to bring it to your customers and do some of the work you're doing. How about your own go-to-market? Like, what changes are you making? Maybe it's messaging, maybe it's the team structure, maybe it's the motion of how you go to market. How have you adjusted for what's happening to your customers and this change?
I mean, honestly, it's a little bit of everything. And the challenge is it's moving very quickly. So I'm doing a couple of very concrete things with my team. I've now got a large global team. I've got about 300 folks across all customer-facing functions in my org. And we are doing one very big structural change, which is we're creating an AI builder team within go-to-market, within revenue operations. So we're going to have a builder team led by a role that we're calling founder in residence. That's going to be a 9-month post for a experienced or aspiring founder who wants to come in and see in the wild what it looks like to build with AI with lots of customers and lots of data. That team is going to end up being hopefully a 10-person team of AI builders focused on pipeline, on new logo sales, and then on customer experience. I think we heard a little from the marketers before about this idea of challenging the structure of teams, and I think that's super real. I'm trying to not constrain our AI innovation to the way my teams are currently built, and instead think about the customer experience and what they get out of the experience of doing business with Vanta, and instead build back from that perspective. So that's a structural investment we're making. We also freed up budget to experiment with AI tools and to build. The less structured thing is that we're just trying to drive exposure. We are trying to set the expectation. If you saw the Shopify CEO's memo that got leaked a couple of weeks ago, this idea that everybody on the team, the baseline expectation is they are leveraging AI in some form, they're using it in their job, and that is just baseline. That is part of the cultural shift we're driving. I'm trying to drive exposure by talking about it, posting about it, showing demos. The way we kicked off a lot of this innovation on my RevOps team was I just set up a dozen demos of some of what we got word were the most exciting solutions. It's like, let's just look at what people are building, look at what they're doing, and from there be inspired and build. So some of those things are solutions that literally came to be in the last 3 to 6 months. So get out and look at things and then challenge your team to just move forward. It's probably not going to be structured or as clean or as process oriented as what you're used to from buying SaaS. I think we've got to get comfortable with that.
Those process people are going to be shaking. It's a lot like we heard this morning in one of the RevOps councils. One of the companies was assigning each person what are you doing about your job with AI? Specifically, how can you make just your own personal self? Are there hours you could take off the clock or hours you could add to better tasks? And then, of course, what does that also mean to our company or to our customer? And I think that's a lot of what I'm hearing here, too, is very in line. How about on your end, Mark?
Yeah, so we drink our own champagne, so we use Glean extensively. And for a lot of questions that are asked internally, the simple answer is just Glean it, which it works. It works great. But I think from an AI and perspective, you can automate information retrieval, right, which is super helpful, right? For instance, if you want to build territory, you need to actually analyze all the signals that you are getting from the market, from your systems, from your sellers, from competitors, from information that you can gather everywhere. So retrieval is much faster and a lot more reliable. And on the other side, what I really enjoy is coaching and preparation that becomes a lot more powerful than it used to be. Instant coaching on someone that is almost on the fly, receiving anecdotal input that is going to help them just make a difference in one conversation. And separately, there's also the idea that when you prepare your meeting, typically especially when you sell to the large enterprise, you have a lot of people that are involved. Right, you have plenty of functions, multiple overlay individuals that are going to be there, making sure that they all have access to the same level of preparation and information ahead of the meeting, making sure that that information is relevant for the meeting and differentiated. So it's not just your product that is differentiated, it's your sales organization and how they execute. That is amazing. A month-ish ago, I was going through one of those speed dating events that are organized by investors, where you have a lot of startups that are lined up and pitching their ideas to either an investment committee or ideally the prospective buyer. And it was heartwarming because Glean was the last one to present that morning, and every single startup that was there before us had prepared their presentation with Glean. And as I was about to present, that's the input I got, which was okay, so this is going to go well. It did go well, but also I had to ask, how relevant were their point of view? And truth is, it was spot on. And so, how many times before in the past, sales teams would show up with a preconceived point of view that just went flat. I think AI really transforms that and makes, elevates your A game as far as your sales organization is concerned, and that's really cool.
How about, I was going to say, it's funny, I could imagine you at this conference walking up and just dropping a mic, You're you just see him at this thing. They've already said it.
I can't drop that one. But
They've done it.
Yeah.
One other is, how about tools that you're using internally? Why don't you start, Mark? Of course, Glean, but external tools, third-party tools, things that you're seeing brought in to the company, to the stack that's being used today.
Well, the one that I've been using for a long time and that has become an AI platform for real is Gone, right? And I remember even in my past, funny enough, with Rick presenting before, I used Gone extensively to change our response to Databricks marketing. because it was super interesting to see in listening to the perspective of the prospects and customers, what their way of saying about our own competition between Snowflake and Databricks. It was extremely helpful to actually use our customers' language as opposed to marketing propaganda, right? Because it did resonate so much. Like, obviously, your marketing function creates the right DNA, the right mindset in order for you to be competitive. But ultimately, what the customer say is the only thing that matters. It's how you perceive it. And using the recording and like literally analysis on the go, it was just, I didn't have to go and listen to hour-long recording. I would just get the recap.
Sure.
It's great. And I do that today, and it's indexed in Glean for what it's worth. So it's also the reason why Glean is so helpful, because we actually pull the data from multiple platforms at once. But Gong is certainly the one I've personally experienced, providing a ton of value over the years.
Good. And Stevie, I know you mentioned Clay earlier.
Yep.
We actually heard about Clay also in the session we did this morning.
Very popular.
And so I
Hashtag
know the
proud
sales
investor.
leaders here. I saw him
Yeah.
yesterday, so he's happy. But go ahead.
It's great. Yeah. So we also heavily use Gong. So big fans of Gong. We use our own internal tools. So we've got questionnaire automation to automate security questionnaires. We have a trust center to automate sort of the sharing of all of our security information and data. And then we are starting to take the next steps on next big tools. So Clay is our biggest today, and we're using that for a variety of use cases. Everything from really clean and highly customized to our business data enrichment, both for managing existing territories and then also for outbound prospecting. We are now starting to look at the next wave of use cases. Some of those we built at that hackathon. So that was everything from leveraging Gong transcripts to drive a personalized deck for a business review that is like built around what is the value that this customer has perceived in the platform. Did we realize it? And then turning that into a deck, leveraging AI from Clay. So we're doing all kinds of a personalized outbound outreach based on like even personalized screenshots of what a trust center could look like for a customer of Clay. So lots of Clay use cases. Then we're looking at sort of the next set of purpose-built things. So things that we are either considering piloting or looking at. One is a platform called Attention that lays on top of conversational platforms and then really gives you the power of all those transcripts in a much more thoughtful way. Think of it like almost like a way to both take the data out of the transcripts and get it into your CRM without manual data entry, plus a way to drive business intelligence out of those transcripts at scale. We're also looking at a platform for post-sales called Pavlov that drives agentic onboarding and really interesting kind of driving customers through that onboarding experience in an automated, interesting way. And then we're looking at, like really what else we can do with OpenAI and ChatGPT. There is actually so much in the platform. Like we've got our whole team licenses. We started with the typical use cases, and now we're going much deeper. We've got folks building their own GPTs. We've got a Salesforce integration with ChatGPT, and then we're driving kind of interesting templated account plans out of that. So there's actually a lot, and I suspect personally that OpenAI is going to end up disrupting a lot of the companies in the market as they add functionality to the core platform. So I think the model companies have a real opportunity there. But again, your team has to learn it. You've got to spend the time. There's a lot of enablement to be done.
We heard in the RevOps Council this morning that it really takes the sales leader and RevOps leader to challenge status quo, and how can we become better and more efficient. Really interesting. Let's go back to hiring, AEs. I mean, there's a lot of people that have been in jobs for long periods of time. Are those skills staying consistent in your teams now, or are you adjusting your hiring criteria or skills criteria for that next generation of salespeople, go-to-market people?
It's a great question. You want to go first?
Well, I think you still need playbook-driven sellers, right? I mean, at least that's the way I function. If you have a sales setup that is very...
We are old, though. That's
I am
holding
I'm
on to the past.
Extremely old, but like, thank you.
You said it.
No, but I guess the one thing is it depends whether you are driving a PLG or you're driving an outbound sales motion, right? So this stays real, like as a how you choose your right seller. As far as I'm concerned, the only thing that I've changed is I check whether sellers, especially on an outbound motion, are willing and able to actually use AI solutions. But I don't just test their ability to do it. I test whether they are using it to get better or to take shortcuts. Because I don't want people that are going to go for doping. I want people to actually use technology to get significantly better to win. And taking shortcuts in sales is never a good idea. Doing things better and faster, sure, that's fine. But drug and performance enhancement stuff, it's not the right thing. So it's getting deeper into identifying whether you have the right DNA or not. But ultimately, I think the fundamentals, like think about a basketball game. The game has not changed, even though Curry has changed the way teams can win. Ultimately, the game of basketball is still the same thing. And even though it makes me sound horribly old, that's a firm belief I have. Ish.
Rich and experienced. I appreciate it. Okay.
Wise.
There you go.
Yeah,
How do you see-
I still deeply believe selling is a human endeavor, and that is not going to change anytime soon. I think the core sales skills remain as important, if not more important today than ever before. Just look to how incredibly hard to parse an inbox it is today. If you want to see how difficult it is to break through when all of the outbound is like personalized AI noise, humans break through. And that will remain true. Salesforce just is going to hire 2,000 human sellers to sell their AI solutions. Like the AI is not selling itself. So I do think that the way it changes the profile is that this curiosity about AI, a willingness to embrace new tools and learn new ways of working has to be the baseline. So at this point, anybody that joins our team, if they're not at least touching on how they leverage AI as part of their process, probably a flag that they're not going to be a fit. It really comes down to curiosity, grit, and that mindset of being willing to learn and embrace new ways of working. I think it does make it less likely that folks who have a playbook and they're very comfortable with that playbook are not going to work as well in this new world. But I think it would be a mistake to just set aside those core sales skills, because ultimately what it still comes down to is value-based selling. It's those core sales skills that we've been teaching our teams for decades. They are still the most important thing.
Good answer.
Well, let's do this. Let's take a couple minutes. Do we have the mics on the sides, hopefully? If we can get a couple audience questions, if there are any. Anyone have any questions out there? See one over here on the right.
Thank you. So you touched on value realization as well as no ROI currently. But then how do you sell to these large public companies and PE firms who want you to send a spreadsheet in Excel called value realization or value engineering spreadsheet or calculator, ROI calculator, that they can take from you and then they own it, put their own name, and then sell it to their own.
Keep the microphone in front of your mouth. It gets hard to hear you. Did everybody get that?
Yeah. So,
Okay.
so essentially, it's I made the comment that a lot of companies have not accomplished any ROI with AI. So, how do you technically educate them on how, and how do you make sure that they take ownership of the numbers that you are putting in front of them to justify the purchase itself? It really depends whether you have a solution that is geared towards a team or one function in the enterprise versus if you are horizontal. If you are horizontal, you have no choice. You have to start selling into organizations that have been traditionally ROI driven themselves. Yeah. And I'll give you an example. Sales is, customer support is, engineering is, because an ability for an engineering team to actually ship code faster, it's easy to track. Just understand the debugging component of their process, etc. Especially if in constant delivery today, it's easy to monitor. You will see when you bring the right solution to them that it's easy for your team to quantify in POC, proof of concept, the ROI that you are going to be able to drive at scale. And then it's a question of having your champion take ownership of this and take that to the decision makers. If for any reason you're actually selling into a specific function, it's very important for you to actually have documentation from your wins, your existing customers, not just post-transaction, just immediately after. It's, come back to them 6 months after. Say, hey, we said we would win this deal based on these criteria. How much more value have we been able to drive? Because you have to challenge them on their own ability to take ownership of that number post-sale. And if you are able to have that marketed, and you give that to your marketing team to make sure that you have white papers, you have like a good communication that is being broadcasted, you have panels of people that are able to just like defend your point of view, then you're good. But I think it's very much like a difference between like a horizontal versus a function by function type of product.
There's also just a temptation with especially AI forward solutions to get attached to the flashiness and how exciting it is, and it's a new exciting way of working. You really can't resist going back to basics and defining, why are these people buying? Why would they buy? And people only buy for 3 reasons, right? It's grow revenue, reduce costs, or reduce risk. Get super clear on which of those things you're doing, quantify it, write it down, have your buyer validate it in real time, and then run that process. In my team, we've built a value engineering practice that does exactly this. So we've got a team that quantifies and then goes deal by deal, validating that value with our buyers, and then validating that we've realized that value at the point of renewal with our existing customers. It is blocking and tackling. It's like taking your vitamins. You have to do it. It's not enough to have a exciting, flashy new solution. If that solution does not quantifiably do one of those 3 things in a way that means something to the business, it will not stick.
I like the going back you both mentioned. It's not just get the sale.
Yeah.
It's going back to prove the real value, and then honestly leveraging that. And that could be an upsell or a renewal, and that could probably be case studies for other customers to be used too for proof points. Do we have one more question out there? How about here in the front row? We'll let you speak up. Just go ahead.
Yeah, all right. So on the value engineering topic, how long do you think that team's going to be operating the current way they're operating? It seems to me like a lot of the calculations that are done are like calculations that a consulting analyst does, and that can be done by all these tools now.
I do think it changes over time, but I don't think it radically changes. I think that the work they do will be powered by exciting tools. The platform we use internally, and I think the guys are potentially in the room, Manoa is the platform that we're using to power those value-based business cases and automate a lot of that work. But the reality is, like, the perception of value shifts over time, the way we calculate it shifts over time, the competitive landscape changes. And our value engineers operate almost like a sales engineer in that they are on customer calls, they are in the conversation, and they are modifying the way we think about value in real time. So it will change. I don't think it ever goes away. It's certainly never a static spreadsheet that stays one way and doesn't move over the course of a year.
All right, so if you're trying to keep a human job, going to sales is one thing I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Kind of rapid fire to maybe close this out. We have lots of go-to-market execs in the room, but we also have lots of founders in the room. And if there's one thing that you could leave with all this experience and say, here's like the one thing, if you're a founder right now, early stage, and you're thinking about you're selling an AI product, like what's the one key piece of advice you'd give?
Outbound still works. Pick up the phone.
All right.
I love that. Amen.
I would say don't be too enamored with your product. The product doesn't matter, the outcome does. And focus on the outcome you are able to drive with your solution, because that is the only way you are going to be sticky in the company you sell to.
Have you ever run into a technical founder excited about their product versus the outcome? I mean, it sounds like there's experience there. All right, everyone. Hopefully that's helpful. We had marketing in the age of AI, and that's selling in the age of AI. Thank you.